Welcome into Section215.com. I'm Tim Kelly, joined as always by Summers Price, and there is never a dull day when it comes to the Eagles, at least not as of late, and we're happy to bring in a guy who's been on the front of the line to see it all firsthand, Tim McManus of Birds 24/7, also the Eagles reporter for 97.5 The Fanatic. Tim, thanks for joining us. Let's get right to it. You guys didn't know that Chip Kelly was going to speak yesterday. A lot of us at home, and then certainly you guys expected Brandon Graham to come out to talk about his contract extension, and all of a sudden Chip Kelly steps to the podium for the first time in over 2 months. How much did that catch you off guard, and do you think it was done with a purpose behind it?
Well, we had heard earlier in the day that there was a chance that Chip Kelly was going to speak, but we never got official word of it. And then Kelly came down, like you said, when Brandon Graham was supposed to take the podium. It was the head coach of the Eagles instead. And we know that he typically does not speak during the off-season unless he is mandated to. This was the first exception that he's really had to that rule. What's behind it? I mean, one thing you can say is obviously they've been making a ton of moves. There's been skepticism to a certain level about the moves that they've been making. And, of course, they just got rid of the starting quarterback and brought a new one in. So you can say that might have something to do with it. There's other people that are trying to look deeper into it, saying maybe he volunteered that he had a team that looked for a first-round pick for Sam Bradford already to help generate some further interest and get the word out about a potential trade for Bradford in the big Mariota scheme. But that's all kind of speculation. As far as we know, we don't know for certain what his motives were, but everything that the Eagles do and everything that Kelly does certainly has a purpose.
Now, Tim, there was a lot of questions thrown his way covering all sorts of topics, and to his credit, he did answer most of them, at least for the most part. How much of what Kelly had to say in regards to those questions did you actually believe?
Well, I mean, there's some that you have to, you can't just take at face value. As an example, when he said that he didn't have anything to do with the power restructure, that was all Jeffrey Lurie, that's kind of on a technicality because, of course, the owner is the one that's going to make those kind of decisions as to how it's going to be structured. But it was pretty clear that when we spoke with Lurie at the end of the season that he had full intentions of keeping Howie Roseman as the general manager. And then Chip Kelly went into his office and had a meeting and mapped out the way that he wanted things. And a short time later, Lurie did a complete about-face and decided to hand all of the power to Chip Kelly. And so when he's asked about that, and he says, that was not me, that was Lurie, it's like, okay, well, not really. So that's one of the things. And, so I think there's certain truths that come out, but also you have to understand what the head coach's angle is, whether we're talking about the upcoming trade, whether we're talking about how things went down and what could have been a pretty messy power struggle. You understand that the Eagles are trying to spin it a specific way.
Yes, certainly, and I think you mentioned this earlier in the interview, and certainly this is still something that a lot of people want to know about the chances of it happening. Marcus Mariota, where do you see the chances of the Eagles making a push up for him now after this, after they held a press conference for Sam Bradford and are selling his jersey on the website currently?
Yeah, well, everything that I've heard is kind of similar to what's been out there in respect to Kelly's interest in Mariota. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt that he likes him a lot as a quarterback and that he wouldn't mind having him running his system. It's just a matter of whether he can actually get him. When I was out in Indianapolis at the Combine listening to the general manager and the head coach of the Titans speak, they weren't speaking like they were definitely passing on Mariota, and they're sitting at number 2. I mean, I think there's a real chance that both of those quarterbacks go really early in the draft, and it's a matter of whether the Eagles would be able to get all the way up there. Kelly said yesterday at his press conference that they're not going to mortgage the future for Mariota because of all the different holes that they have to fill, and I think that we should take him somewhat at his word there, that it might just be too prohibitive to get all the way up. I think that if Mariota were to drop some, then you're talking. I mean, if he gets 2.6 or past that, and it becomes realistic and not too expensive for the Eagles to make a move, now they have Sam Bradford as a potential trade chip. They and maybe they would throw a couple other things another team's way. But I would say that the odds are against that. So if I was setting the odds, I would say that Sam Bradford's going to be the quarterback, but you can't leave out the possibility that if the chips fall the right way, that Kelly will go and try to get his guy.
And even if that is the case, though, Chip's claims he was offered a first-round pick in that press conference yesterday, which certainly a lot of people are skeptical about. Even if his plan originally was to keep Bradford as a starter, wouldn't you think that if he's offered that, that kind of lends itself to lessening the blow of mortgaging the future to go up and get Marcus Mariota?
Well, it was a curious statement that he said, because head coaches don't usually volunteer that kind of information. But the context in which it was asked was about the second rounder that was included in that St. Louis trade that went back to the Rams, and he said, "Well, I just got an offer, a first round pick for him today." So I don't know if he was just defending the value of the trade, or if he was just kind of leaking that out there. But there does seem to be at least some kind of market for Sam Bradford. There's a report last month that there were some teams interested up top in the draft that would be more interested in Bradford than they would a Mariota or Jameis Winston, and so you can maybe try to connect those dots, but I still think that it's going to be tough for Kelly to pull off.
Certainly. He seemed to choose his words very carefully when talking about what he was potentially offered. Sticking with Sam Bradford, is there any reason to believe that, someone who has played just 7 games the last 2 seasons, he's dealt with serious knee injuries and rehabs, now, would he have any incentive to restructure on the last year of what was a pretty big rookie deal without getting an extension on top of it? I know it's already come out that the team hasn't approached him about taking an extension.
Yeah, I think that he would probably have interest, depending on what the numbers are, because he does have that injury history. If they can provide some kind of longer term security, then I would imagine that would be appealing to Bradford, and I know that certainly he likes the thought of playing in this system with Chip Kelly, which he considers quarterback friendly, and which he thinks has some similarities to what he ran at Oklahoma, where he was clearly very successful, won the Heisman, and was the number 1 overall pick. So I think that he wouldn't mind staying in Philly. It's just a matter of how the Eagles are thinking about this, and I wouldn't imagine anything would be going down right now in terms of that, but it will probably make sense from the Eagles standpoint. If you're looking at $13 million, that's a whole lot for a single season. Can you get that number a little bit lower by giving him something longer term without committing to him big time? I mean, those kind of talks are conceivably have gone on, or could go on, but I don't think they have as of yet.
But you wouldn't see any scenario where he just stays on a strictly 1-year deal and takes a lower number?
If he stays on a 1-year deal at the current rate?
Yeah.
Yeah, he could do that. I mean, that might be very well the way that it plays out. Kind of interesting, because the swap, the 2 quarterbacks both are on their last year of their deal. Foles, he's coming at the end of his, but he's only making less than $1 million, as opposed to a Bradford who came in right before the new CBA and was one of the last quarterbacks to really get that rich rookie deal. He's making just a shade under $13 million. It's conceivable, certainly, that he plays under the last year of his rookie deal and then kind of go from there.
All right, and with that, is there any reason in your mind that would lead you to think prior to this that Bradford would have been an option for Chip Kelly? It's such an attractive option, the way that he's spoken of him.
Yeah, I didn't. They've been talking about it for the last 3 or 4 weeks. Bradford revealed that yesterday, and I think that there are elements of his game that Kelly likes. I mean, when you look at his career completion rate, it's under 60%. You kind of scratch your head and say, well, for a guy that's looking for repetitive accuracy almost above everything else, why is that a fit? But he's looking at it in broader terms than that. He believes that he is an accurate quarterback, and that some of the things that there are some things that were holding him back in St. Louis that were allowing him to kind of achieve his full potential. And he thinks that if he can plug him into this system, that it's going to benefit the skill set of Bradford. And he thinks that he's got intelligence. He thinks that he's got a quick release and a pretty nice arm. I think all those things are true. He's got the size and the measurables. It's about 6'4" and 220. So there are things to like about him, and clearly some things that Chip Kelly was attracted to.
Tim, 7 weeks from now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will, conceivably be on the clock with the first overall pick in the draft. And let's say that the Eagles have made it clear that they won't be jumping up for Marcus Mariota. Sam Bradford is their guy. Where do you potentially see the team focusing their efforts in the upcoming draft, whether they stay at 20 or target someone and decide to move up or down?
I think if we had this conversation before all this shake-up in the offseason, I probably would have pointed to the defensive side of the ball, and that's certainly possible. But there's so many positions that all of a sudden have opened themselves up with this different move. I mean, we know that LaShawn McCoy got traded, that filled a linebacker spot. Kiko Alonso coming in, but and then more running backs coming in there. And then Jeremy Maclin, everybody assumed was going to be here, but he ended up jetting for Kansas City, and so now wide receiver becomes a somewhat of a need position. I think that you look at offensive line and the guard spot with Todd Herman's being allowed to walk and signing in Indianapolis. Offensive line is aging, so I wouldn't be surprised if they were to go offensive line. I could see them going wide receiver at this point. And then, of course, long-term cornerback and safety is always a need. So I think it's kind of wide open. I mean, they put themselves in a spot where they have filled some needs during the free agency to this point, but also with their moves, there's going to be a couple holes to fill.
We're talking to Tim McManus of Birds 24/7 here on Section215.com. Tim, yesterday Chip Kelly said that he has a good relationship with Howie Roseman, and when asked, he said, despite not knowing the exact roles, he does expect Howie to be in the war room come draft day, and he seemingly has been more involved in contract negotiations than I think a lot of people expected. Do you envision this creating any sort of problems down the line?
I think that it's definitely possible. I mean, normally when there's a power struggle, the loser of the power struggle ends up out of the building. And in this case, he just kind of moved from one realm into the other, but it's still very much connected to what the head coach does. And yes, Roseman does have he is in charge of the salary negotiations. He's the one that agents are talking to, from what I've heard. And he's playing an important role in what gets done in the offseason. He just doesn't have the same kind of control over the personnel side that he once did, or really as much of any say on the personnel side by the sounds of it. But the relationship between Kelly and Roseman, from what I understand, is not great. I wonder how it's going to play out. I mean, and certainly it's a storyline to keep watching.
Yeah, I think I can speak for all Eagles fans when I say that we're really hoping that doesn't come to a head like some of us imagine it might be. Now, Tim, since his arrival in Philadelphia, there's always been the question of whether or not Chip is destined to return to the college ranks where he gained such notoriety. With an off-season like this, do these seem like the type of moves made by a coach planning on staying in the NFL, or maybe just sort of winging it? I know some people have criticized these moves and noting that he has the quote-unquote golden parachute of returning to a high-profile college job. How do you kind of see how he's gone about things this offseason in that respect?
It speaks to me of somebody that's not going to settle for 10 wins. That's not going to settle for, maybe we win the division, maybe we don't, maybe we get a playoff win here and there. I think it's somebody that's swinging for the fences. And, that can turn out one of two ways, as you guys know. I mean, he can either connect and he ends up taking this organization to new heights, or, the aggressive moves do not pay off, and all of a sudden, the organization starts floundering, at which point maybe Kelly has to leave, and then yes, I think that there would be a lucrative offer from a number of college teams waiting for his services. So there is kind of that whole element. But I don't think that he parted with Oregon, which he had a great deal of respect for and loved a lot, and came to the pros just to be okay, just to be mediocre. I think that he came here, to be great, and I think that's what he's trying to accomplish. I mean, he's unconventional, we know that, and he's taking some unconventional approaches here, and it might be amazing, and it might completely explode, and that's kind of the situation that we're looking at.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that he is swinging for the fences. I'm just not sure he's doing it in the manner that a lot of us originally anticipated he would. Now, people have compared the current power structure that the Eagles have to that of Pete Carroll in Seattle, Bill Belichick in New England. Obviously, those guys have a few things that Chip Kelly does not, but is that the way that you see it, that it's a similar power structure?
In New England, I think it is similar to Seattle's in the fact that Pete Carroll has final say, but I think their general manager, John Schneider, also is has a big amount of influence as to what goes on, whereas in New England, there is no general manager, just like there's no general manager here, technically, and Belichick is the one who's kind of making all of those decisions and has even more authority than in somewhere like Seattle. So I do think it's very Belichickian. I think that Kelly looks to Belichick and looks to New England and that structure, and sees things that he likes and would like to apply. And of course, there's the big difference that Belichick, one, has the quarterback, and two, he has the Super Bowls and he has the clout, something that Kelly has not achieved yet.
All right, Tim, last one from us. Jeffrey Lurie has really sort of stuck his neck out, especially in the last couple of weeks, it would seem. Really seems to be going for it with giving Chip Kelly all of this power. All things considering, how long of a window, how much patience do you see Jeffrey Lurie having with Chip Kelly under this current structure?
It's a good question. I mean, we know that Kelly has a 5-year deal. He's in year number 3 of that right now. And I don't think that, even though there's probably, Lurie might not be totally comfortable with the way that things went down this offseason or the current structure. It's not exactly what he wanted. He also recognizes that Kelly could give them an opportunity where they have one of the better coaches in the NFL and could set them up potentially for a great level of success. And like we talked about, there's a risk involved in the way that he operates, but there's also an upside to this and a chance that Kelly really knows what he's doing. And so I think that there is a level of patience here. I don't think that Lurie exactly wants to set off on another coaching search. I believe that he believes that having stability at the top is critically important, and if you can run with the same guy like you did with Andy Reid for a long time, or like the Steelers do, I mean that's kind of the ideal way. So I think that I don't think we're close to hitting the reset button, if that's the question.
All right, Tim McManus of Birds 24/7. Tim, I know you're busy and you may have another sign to cover this afternoon. Thanks for joining us, and hope to hear from you soon.
Okay, guys, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.